Hi, welcome back to the Barrett channel and welcome to another video. A warm welcome to any new subscribers and a welcome back for our regular viewers and subscribers. I want to talk today about the Hong Kong security law and also the riots that have been taking place over the weekend and the last couple of days in the USA. And I want to sort of compare these two situations and how politicians are speaking about these two situations. But before I do that, I'd just like to say a thank you to all those people who support us and allow us to keep creating content for you out there. There are three ways you can support us. The first one is directly on WeChat. The second is with Buy Me a Coffee. And the third is becoming a Patreon. The links are down below. I'll put the graphics on the screen. Patrons will now get access to also all our live stream content, which is not left up on our regular channel, but it is accessible through Patreon. So before I start, I'd just like to play you a small news clip.
Also instituted an emergency curfew as of 8 p.m. tonight, and that is currently in effect all the way through 5 a.m. in the morning. We will reevaluate that curfew and extend it if needed. While the city supports peaceful assembly and free speech, we cannot tolerate destruction of property, looting, or violence.
Now, I'd like you to remember those words. While the city supports peaceful assembly and free speech, we cannot tolerate destruction of property, looting or violence. I just want you to hold on to those words while you watch the rest of the video. And the second thing I'd like to do, I'd just like to define the terms of a couple of words here. So these are straight out of the dictionary. The first one is terrorism. The definition of terrorism is the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, specifically against civilians in the pursuit of political gains. And next, subversion. The undermining of the power and authority of an established system or institution. So, Hong Kong security law, what is it? Okay, well, for around 20 years under Article 23, the Hong Kong administration have had an opportunity to introduce a law to stop this kind of illegal behaviour by protesters. And in that sort of 20 plus years, that hasn't been introduced. But over the last sort of year or so, there was protests started, independent, free Hong Kong, pro-democracy protests, whatever you'd like to call them. And I think while these protests were initially peaceful, there was no issue. But these protests have got slowly more violent over time. So they've ended up killing a civilian, they set someone on fire, they destroyed property, they destroyed train stations, they stopped people from using the airports, they stopped people from using the subway, they blocked roads, they attacked innocent people. And very little could be done about this. And actually, in my opinion, the police were pretty patient with these people, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. But what's happened is this has caused many problems for Hong Kong. One, it stopped many people from traveling to Hong Kong. It's caused businesses a lot of problems. Businesses have lost money, insurance companies have had to pay out, and it's completely disrupted Hong Kong. And I think the Chinese government, because the Hong Kong administration haven't sort of passed laws to correctly deal with this or deal with it more severely, I think the Chinese here in Beijing, the Chinese authorities in Beijing have sort of had enough of this, and they've lost their patience as they now see it as a national threat to Hong Kong. So they have decided to enact a security law. Another reason they wish to introduce this security law, the Beijing government are seeing more and more interference in this situation. by foreign entities, predominantly the USA, but also some other Five Eyes countries, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK. And I think they obviously are not happy with this interference by other countries, and rightly so. Hong Kong is a part of China, and it's a Chinese internal matter. It's really nothing to do with outside countries. And I think it's very interesting that if you look at these other Five Eyes countries, they all have numerous security laws of their own, but they're suggesting Hong Kong are not allowed to have one. And I think this is just unbelievable how these countries think they can dictate to China what they can and can't do in their own country. And I think they use this thing that it will affect the one country, two systems mechanism. But I really don't believe, and a number of other people have said that it will not affect this system whatsoever. And I think this law wouldn't even being debated now if the protests had not have got as violent as they have, and if Hong Kong wasn't sort of being interfered with, or people in Hong Kong weren't being influenced by foreign entities. So I can completely understand where they're coming from. You imagine if the boot was on the other foot, and like for example, if you look at America, Hawaii have had demonstrations about having independence from the USA. Now, just think if you started having Chinese politicians going over there and talking to the Hawaiian people, saying, "Oh, well, you've got China. We'll support you with your independence." There'd be absolutely uproar in the United States. So I think you have to look at it from the perspective of China. It's completely wrong for these other countries to be interfering in internal affairs of China in relation to Hong Kong, because we mustn't forget that Hong Kong is actually part of China. And as far as these people suggesting that free Hong Kong, Hong Kong was handed back to the Chinese by the UK government some 20 something years ago, and it's in my opinion the Chinese are not going to let it become a separate entity, and in my opinion neither should they. Now I want to talk about the actual riots in Hong Kong and how they relate to the riots going on in the USA. So when you had these riots going on here in Hong Kong, these rioters by sort of many people in the Five Eyes countries were sort of seen as heroes. Oh, they're freedom fighters. That they're being unfairly targeted by the police. This is just not the case. They were in effect, as the definition in the dictionary, they were terrorists. They were causing damage, they were attacking civilians, they were damaging property, they were setting fire to things, blocking roads, making people not being able to use the airport. Yeah, and even you had an American politician, I believe, Nancy Pelosi, saying, it's a wonderful sight to behold. This is talking about people who are breaking the law and committing crimes. Yeah, now, when these rioters are doing a very similar thing in America over their so-called freedoms or rights for black people there, they are branded as thugs and criminals. And you look at how hard the police are there. They're attacking them quite aggressively, and yet this is something that was levelled at the Hong Kong police. And if you look at the two, it's blatantly obvious to see who were more forceful in this. Obviously, by looking at the footage, by examining the videos, by examining what's going on, it's blatantly obvious that the USA police are far more brutal and far more forceful than the Hong Kong police in a very, very similar situation. And I thought it was telling that the President of the USA came out with a statement, and the statement was, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Now this is from somebody, and again, I've said this many times, when you have a crisis in your country, you look to the leader. And in times like this, the leader should be portraying calm. He should be empathizing with the people, not stoking the fire. This is absolutely just crazy talk from a president who has all this responsibility. It seems to me that he's not responsible in the slightest bit. What you need now is to be apologizing. Police officers in the USA murdered, they killed a black person, and there is no ifs or buts there. So they should be apologizing. And I see that one state, I think it was Miami, they actually did apologize. They says, look, we are really, really sorry for what happened, it was wrong. And yet you don't see any rioting and looting in that particular state. But for your leader to come out and start sort of stoking the fire for this is just absolutely unbelievable in my mind. So now I want to go on to talk about something else that the President of the USA has said. And he said, because of if China enacts this law on their sovereign territory, let's note, that they will possibly enact sanctions against Hong Kong. So right now, Hong Kong has some special trading relationship with the US, and that's being threatened to be taken away. Now again, this is another knee-jerk policy in my opinion by the USA, because I think this will affect the USA more than it will affect China, because what I believe will happen in retaliation, and you've already seen some of this appear in the Chinese news, China will start to stop purchasing agricultural goods from the USA, which is really going to hit American farmers hard. And another thing that I think America will then do is, in retaliation to that, they will impose tariffs on more Chinese goods or increase the tariffs that are currently there. Again, this is something that will hurt the American citizens, because ultimately the cost of goods will go up, it will stoke inflation. And is that really something you want when your economy is in such a bad state? Because of what's recently happened, because of the incompetence of the American administration to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, you've got 40 million people that are now unemployed in the USA, and you have more than 105,000 people that have died. So is it really the time to start doing more damage to your economy by imposing more tariffs and restrictions? Personally, I think not. So in conclusion, I think that China are actually right to bring this security law into force. And I think what that will do is it will bring some stability and calm back to Hong Kong, because if these people continue to protest and attack people and damage property, they will be dealt with far more severely, and they then spend the prospect of spending a long time in jail. So I'm hoping that it will bring an end to all this violence. I think if they peacefully protest, then there's no issue. And I think that the sort of stability and calm is what Hong Kong needs. It needs businesses to get back. You look at things like the hotel trade and the airlines, they're really, really suffering because of the stupidity of these people. And the sooner they can get back to normal, once people get confidence back in Hong Kong, people will start traveling back into Hong Kong. As you know, it's a major financial hub there. So yeah, things will get back to normal, which is a good thing. I personally think it's very important that the one country, two systems is upheld. And I think China will uphold that, because they realise that what a sort of economic centre Hong Kong is for them. So they'd be really stupid to endanger that. And it's obvious that there are also a lot of people within Hong Kong itself who support having this security law, as I said before, to bring some peace and calm back to Hong Kong. I would also like to make the comment that I think it's a bit stupid for these Five Eyes countries to get involved and concentrate so much on Hong Kong when they have such a lot of problems in their own country. Perhaps if those governments sort of address more of the problems in their own country rather than worrying about meddling in other people's affairs, they might do better to solve some of the problems at home. So that brings me to the end of another video here on the Barrett channel. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you like our channel in general, please consider subscribing. And if you're really into us, hit those bells to be notified as soon as we have a new video. You can also check our social links, which I'll put up here now. But apart from that, as always, take care.